what's up everyone? GameDad here, coming back at you guys with part 4 of my current N64 collection series. So the past 3 weeks we have done the first 3 parts of this series and gone through quite a big chunk of the N64 library. And today is going to be the same. We're going to look at some more games, check out some more gameplay footage, and I'll give you my thoughts on each game. Paper Mario was released by Intelligent Systems in 2000, and this was, I guess you could say, not really a continuation of the Paper Mario franchise, but this was the first step in the direction that Nintendo would start taking to keep reliving Super Mario RPG from the Super Nintendo days. And this game, I gotta say, it's fantastic. The graphical style is great, and the story is even better. Pilotwings 64 was released by Paradigm Entertainment in 1996, and this game is really a testament to what the N64 was capable of. As you can see, you have upgraded 3D graphics based on its predecessor on the Super Nintendo, and you still get that same classic feel that you would expect from a Pilotwings game. You have your different ring challenges, you have to make sure you land just right, and you're going for a better and better score overall. Up next, we have Pokemon Snap, released by HAL Laboratory in 1999, and this game it's a unique take on a Pokemon game. Instead of going around and, collecting Pokemon with Pokeballs, you are filling out your photo album and taking pictures of everything that you see. And the game was kind of like an on-rail shooter, but with a camera and Pokemon instead. Now here we have Pokemon Stadium, released by Nintendo in 1999, and this was the first time where Pokemon really entered the 3D space. And it was awesome because you got to do all kinds of, different battles with various Pokemon and stuff like that, but in a 3D stadium. So this really marked the start of a brand new franchise for the Pokemon Company, and it was great. Up next, we have the follow-up with Pokemon Stadium 2, released by Nintendo in 2000, and this not only got a graphics update, but it got a huge Pokédex update, and you could play as so many more Pokemon. And what was really cool about this one and its predecessor were that you could actually use the transfer pack accessory to transfer from your game to Pokemon Stadium and back and forth. That way you could train, earn experience, and have even more fun that way. Up next is Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, released by Mass Media in 2000, and I actually own a lot of these Lightspeed Rescue games because I went out and got them after meeting Mike Chat, who played the Blue Power Ranger in the Lightspeed Rescue series. And super cool guy, big in the martial arts industry, but this particular game, I didn't really care for it all that much. I thought on Game Boy it was a lot better, a lot more interactive, but this one, it was cool for a game in the 3D. Up next, we have Quake 64, released by Midway in 1998, and this game for the time is actually a lot of fun. It definitely had some 007 GoldenEye kind of vibes to it, and controls for these types of game on the N64 weren't that great, but overall the multiplayer on this game is fantastic, and I would highly recommend picking this one up, or at least giving it a play if you haven't. And here we have Quake II, released by Raster Productions in 1999, and this one was a follow-up, and I gotta say, they made vast improvements to this one. Graphically, gameplay-wise, the HUD is a lot cleaner, the controls are just a lot nicer, more fluid, and overall, I just think this version was way more fun on the N64. It's just a shame that they didn't come out with any more on this console. Up next is Quest 64, released by Imagineer in 1998, and this was actually my first experience with an RPG on the console. And I remember putting hours into this game, playing at a friend's house, and the game is great. It has an excellent story, the graphics are exactly what you would expect for this console generation, and the game overall is just fantastic. And here we have Rally Challenge 2000, released by Genki in 1999, and surprisingly, this game actually controls very well. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. Graphically, it's pretty darn good, and overall the course designs, they're okay. Nothing to, write home about, but overall, I was just really impressed with the controls. Very snappy. Up next, we have Rat Attack, released by Pure Entertainment in 2000, and kind of ironic with the name there because I did not find this game entertaining at all. It's very odd, the controls are very strange, and overall, it just really wasn't that fun in my opinion. Definitely a kind of throwaway game in the collection. I'm glad I didn't have to pay too much. Up next, we have Rayman 2, The Great Escape, released by Ubisoft in 1999. And I am a big fan of the Rayman franchise, and this game is no different. These all have the same kind of classic 3D platformer kind of feel to them, even dating back to the 2D platformer versions. But overall, I mean, the game is fun, it's got a fun story to it, and it plays pretty well on the console. Up next is Ridge Racer 64, released by Nintendo in 2000, and this was another surprise for me. This game actually controlled really well, and it's surprising to me that some of these kind of not off-brand, but sort of one-off games that were on the console actually controlled a lot better than some of the racing mainstays that are on the console. So this game, it's very tight controls, there isn't a lot of drift or anything like that, and it was a lot of fun to play. Up next is Road Rash 64, released by Pacific Coast Power and Light in 1999. And I did not care for this Road Rash. I mean, the controls are okay. The draw distance is complete garbage. As you can see, like, you can't even see in the distance to see what's drawn. When you get a game that's like from the 16-bit era and you can see everything from miles ahead of you, that's a lot more fun. Even though this game is in 3D, I wasn't impressed. Up next, we have Roadsters, released by Titus Software in 1999, and this one is just, it's okay. I mean, definitely one of those like $2 games you pick up in the bargain bin at a flea market, but I mean, it was all right. Graphically, it's pretty good. It's got a nice detailed HUD, so it's got that going for it, but drift in this game is just total garbage. It made it not that fun to play. Up next, we have Rocket, Robot on Wheels, released by Sucker Punch in 1999. Now, I am a fan of Sucker Punch games. They have come out with some fun stuff over the years. This one, it felt like a grab for, just making a 3D platformer. It didn't really have any coherentness to it. I mean, it's just a generic platformer at best. Up next is Rugrats in Paris, the movie, released by Avalanche Software in 2000. And I gotta be honest, the games that were released by Nickelodeon and Nicktoons, things like that, are actually a lot of fun. I mean, they don't go overboard on the graphics because you wouldn't expect them to. They're very cartoony, which is awesome. And the overall controls and platforming work really well in these games, especially in this one. I mean, I remember watching Rugrats as a kid. Up next is Rush 2 Extreme Racing USA, released by Midway in 1998. And this game, it's kind of like a Cruisin' USA sort of game, but, more extreme with all the neon colors and sharp lines on the cars. Overall, it controls just like a cruisin' game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not the best thing in the world. But overall, I mean, the game's pretty fun. Up next, we have San Francisco Rush Extreme Racing, released by Midway in 1997, and this one is actually the predecessor to Rush 2, but overall, I think the graphics are actually better in this one, and I think the game handles a lot better. It's got really great draw distances for a racing game like this, and overall, I mean, it's just a fun game. It's still very Cruisin' USA, Cruisin' World status, but overall, it is a fun game. Now, here's a total classic on the console. That is South Park, released by Iguana Entertainment in 1998, and the most important takeaway from this game is the multiplayer and Yellow Snow. I mean, the game has awesome multiplayer to it. The story is just mediocre at best. It's not great, but the multiplayer is where it was totally at with this game, and it was a blast to play. Up next, we have SpiderMan, released by Edge of Reality in 2000, and this game is actually a lot of fun on the console. It was of the era where, as you can very quickly see, there was no ground. Everything was up at the top of the skyscrapers, so you did a lot of web slinging, and you would take out a lot of baddies and stuff like that, but there was no really hitting the ground because that meant you fell off the building and died. And up next, we have Starcraft 64, released by Mass Media in 2000, and this game is fantastic. It's one of my favorite RTS-style games, and even though I don't really care for the 64 version that much, I prefer it on PC, it was still a lot of fun being able to play it on console. And something that was awesome about it was, on the N64, it actually came with the Brood War expansion built in. So, very fun to play, very heavy cartridge, actually, with all that extra memory in there. Up next is Star Fox 64, released by Nintendo in 1997, and this game was the reason that we didn't actually get Star Fox 2 officially released on the Super Nintendo, because this one was in the pipe. And I gotta say, this game is fantastic. It's super fun, it's very easy to control, it was far more expanded than Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and obviously they didn't need a special effects chip just to get it to run 3D. Up next is Starshot Space Circus Fever, released by Infogrames in 1999, and I don't really understand what this game is about. I mean, it's kind of a cool platformer at times, but it was a really weird game, to be honest. It's kind of hard to describe. You're in this council, and you have to go around and collect things. I mean, I don't know, it was weird. Up next is Star Wars Episode 1, Battle for Naboo, released by Factor 5 in 2000, and gotta be honest, my least favorite Star Wars game on the console. The controls are awful, and I mean, cool, you get some 3D spaceships and stuff like that, but overall, I think out of all the Star Wars games that are on the N64, this one was the worst, and its subject matter wasn't that great either. I mean, honestly, the prequel trilogy, really? Now here we have Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, released by LucasArts in 1999, and this game is awesome. I mean, you know, there's Mario Kart and all that kind of stuff, but Pod Racer, I mean, this game was awesome. Every kid that I knew that had an N64 had Episode 1 Racer, because being able to race and upgrade your pod racers just like they had in the movie, I mean, hands down, that was the coolest part of Episode 1, was the pod racing. Now here's another good one on the console. That is Star Wars Rogue Squadron, released by Factor 5 in 1998. And this game, the flight controls are very good. It's very solid gameplay. It takes a little bit of getting used to with the aiming and stuff like that. It can be a little touchy at times, but overall, the gameplay mechanics are really fleshed out. The level design is pretty good, and overall, I mean, it is just a fun Star Wars game. So there you have it, everyone. That is everything that is in part 4 of my current N64 collection series. Now, if you guys notice any games that might be missing from my collection, let me know down in the comments below. Also, while you're down there, let me know, what is your favorite N64 game? I'd love to hear from you. In addition to that, please be sure to also hit those like and subscribe buttons, as well as that little notification bell so you get an alert every time I got a new video coming out. Now, as always, I'm GameDad. I thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.